Okay, leg training is done. Not only is it done, I'm done. I am toast. Really beat my quads up today, but that doesn't mean I'm not still gonna give you guys the glute training hacks I promised. So we're gonna get back to my house, and although my home gym right now is a little bit of a mess, a tornado looks like it hit it, but you know, it doesn't matter. I'm sure you guys will appreciate seeing the progress of the gym getting nicer and nicer at home, and you'll see more and more content come out of there. But today, you're still gonna get those awesome glute training hacks. I'm gonna give you 3 movements and tips that will help you get more out of your glute training for a bigger posterior, split some denim to say the least. But something hit me today while I was in the gym hitting legs. I need to give you guys an insight into what I've been eating a lot of lately, and that's potatoes. Now, for whatever reason, potatoes have been really working for me. I look forward to them. I really like the texture. It feels like I'm eating a little bit more food, sustenance. So yeah, I've sort of swapped most of my rice meals out for potatoes, and I'm loving it. But I cook them in the air fryer like every other American. I'm using an air fryer for my potatoes, but I want to give you guys the insight into how I make them taste just a little bit better. So yeah, they're curried potatoes with a little turmeric, a little bit of paprika, a little bit of onion powder, a little garlic salt. Pretty simple. I season them really well, toss them in a little bit of spray olive oil, throw them in there, and boom, they're amazing. So yeah, I got the idea from seeing that English people eat, they have these things called chip shops in England, and they eat a lot of curry and ketchup together. So I thought to myself, well, if they're doing that with chips, potatoes in England, it must be good. So because of that Indian influence, I thought, hey, maybe a good idea would be tossing potatoes in curry powder and then dipping them in ketchup. Did I invent it? I don't know. Did I bring it into the fitness world? Now you can officially say I indeed did. So I'm gonna go home, toss those potatoes in some curry powder, show you guys how I make them, and I'll mix that in with the glute training tips, the hacks. We'll call it a day, and you guys will get a kind of 3-for-1 deal out of it. So moving on to the next thing, I gotta hit the gas station. I am on E right now, if you can see right there. Sorry, that is always dirty. I'm always using my truck for work-related shit, but yeah, I'm on E. I gotta go get some gas, run that up, and then I'll head home, okay? All right. All right, guys, so here we are in my home gym that is very much unfinished, but I'm going to take a few minutes, in fact, to help you guys understand why you're not getting results from your glute training routine and the biggest ways you're making mistakes, okay? So I'm gonna try to chop this thing up and make it very time effective and time efficient so you guys can get a lot out of this in a short amount of time. Now, first, to understand really how the glutes work, we have to understand what they do. What are they actually doing when they're manipulating bones in our body? Well, first, the glute is really very responsible for hip extension. So keep that in mind as we talk. Second, external rotation. And third, AB, abduction. Now, with all of these things in mind, we have to understand the muscle we're really trying to train here is the glute maximus, not the glute medius, not the glute minimus. Now notice I mentioned 3 entire muscles there. Well, the glute maximus is the one that really has the largest ceiling for growth. So we really don't want to be targeting these other muscles. They're supportive muscles that will kick in either way. But when we're trying to get the actual size to change in the glutes, we really want that growth in the posterior, then what we should be focusing on is really targeting the gluteus maximus. So I'm gonna put a little picture right here of the anatomical correct lines of pull and fibers. So now notice, unlike other muscles, the fibers in the glute maximus are not perfect. They don't run in a straight line. They kind of wrap and insert an origin in different places that create this sort of dynamic look to the glute. Now those fibers run in different directions, meaning we should really be keeping that in mind when we're overloading and trying to really force some growth back there. So with all of that said, I'm gonna show you guys the 3 biggest mistakes and hacks for actually getting something out of your glute training routine. Now, here's one of the biggest mistakes I see. A lot of trainers and professionals, they really like to go based on their client's feel or even their own feel. Well, the problem is with that is a lot of these banded abduction exercises and these wide stance sumo deadlifts, these things feel like they're challenging the glutes, right? You get that burn, so it must be working. That's actually not the case. In fact, there's a ton of supportive fibers and supportive muscles in the glutes that we talked about, glute medius, piriformis, TFL. These muscles are really getting challenged and constantly in that contracted position when you're doing these abduction exercises and you're doing these wide stance exercises. You're feeling it back here, but it's very misleading. Where you're actually feeling it is in a lot of these small fibers and these small tissues that don't really have a lot of room for growth. So you're gonna walk out of the gym really feeling like you did something back there, but essentially all you did is really just contracted the shit out of a bunch of small muscles that really don't have much of a ceiling for growth. So the wide stance exercises, not always the best choice. The abduction exercises, not always the best choice. Because remember, this external rotation, this abduction, is great for those fibers, but it's not good for the glute maximus because that's not going to be the actual muscle that's being challenged to its maximum capacity. Now, the next mistake I see a lot in women is they feel a lot of their glute exercises in their quads. Now, that's not uncommon, and it's not something that should really frustrate you because as soon as we see why, we're going to really have it click for us why we can really get around that very easily and just sort of learn this small hack to help us put our glutes in a position to get more of the work and not our quads. So one of the greatest glute exercises of all time, of course, one of the staples, glute bridges or hip thrusters, which are two kind of different exercises, but let's learn how. First, a hip thruster is oftentimes going to take place with the back elevated, feet on the floor, and we are going to thrust all the way up in the air, and most people are going to go all the way back down to the floor, rest, explode. All the way back down to the floor, rest, explode. Now the problem with that movement is because I'm going so low and so far past where the glute is actually being challenged, the glute is actually going, the glute maximus is actually going to turn off beyond a certain point. Once you go too low with your back this elevated, the quads are actually going to be asked to take most of that load. So of course, if that's the case, you're going to feel it in your quads. So how do we fix that? Well, let me show you. We are going to put our body in a position for the glute maximus to get the majority of the work. We want to shorten the movement and explode back up. Shorten the movement, explode back up. Obviously focusing on that line of pull being straight towards the sky. We do not want to go too far down and lose that tension in the glute. We want to stop just a little early and explode back up. Now, oftentimes trainers preach range of motion and the fact that when you do an exercise, you should be going through the largest range of motion possible. Now, while that kind of makes sense in a way because you want to challenge the range of motion as long as you can, the more you learn about a specific muscle, the more you understand that you want that muscle to be the location that's getting the work. If your goal is to grow bigger glutes, we want to hit the damn glutes, not the quads. So if you're picking a hip thruster exercise, I'm guessing you're not trying to challenge the quads. You want the glutes to grow. There's one of the biggest tricks you can use. Now, do you have a girl in your gym or a guy in your gym who leans over on the abductor machine and pushes their glutes back as they're in hip flexion, trying to exaggerate those glutes? Well, unfortunately, all those abductor machine movements, all of those kickbacks, they're not really putting the glute maximus in much of a position to be challenged under its lengthened position. So how are we going to do that? How are we going to stop wasting our time with these fluffy sort of bullshit exercises and actually get something out of our movements? Well, I'll tell you, we are going to try to bypass the hip complex and focus on working the legs individually. And not just working the legs individually, but really challenging that load while we're doing it. So here's a couple of ways I like to do that. 1, barbell, step back, lunges. Notice how the glute is really getting a lot of a load under tension as I step back. I can put a lot of weight on that bar. Look how stretched I am here. That is where a lot of that tension is building up, and that's putting us in a position to really be able to load up some serious weight and challenge that glute maximus and tell it we want it to fucking grow. 2, I really like this glute dominant exercise when we're looking at lunge variations. I want you to grab some dumbbells and we're actually going to elevate our back foot. Elevating our back foot is going to allow us yet again to make sure that we are biasing the glute. So I'll switch legs so you can really see. As I elevate my back foot, I am really going to be putting my body in a position to be taking a lot of that mechanical tension on the glute fiber. You can almost see how, oh, of course, it's going to click for you as you watch it, how much that glute is really going to be put into that position to be challenged. Now, the nice thing about these exercises is like I said before, we are not overtly working those small supportive fibers in the muscles that really can't grow much. We're really focusing on that glute maximus. Last but not least, we are going to talk about how to fix your lunging in general. Now, what I see a lot of people do with their lunges, they use them as this burnout exercise. Well, unfortunately, that metabolic work of just doing body weight all the time is really not going to put you in much of an advantage to start working on building the tissue. Now, we don't need all our rep ranges to be super low. Of course, there's a benefit to doing 4 sets of 10, maybe 4 sets of 8. But what I really want you to start thinking about is with your lunging, using some wrist wraps, grabbing some damn heavy dumbbells for your lunges, and doing your walking lunges slow and postured so that we're loading that tissue directly down with an actual significant amount of weight. We are not pulsing, we are not bouncing, we are not swooping. What we want is, again, is to load the damn tissue in the glute maximus. Grab some heavier dumbbells, use some wrist wraps so your grip doesn't fail first, and do your walking lunges heavy for once. Plant, land, load. Now, if you're not sure how to incorporate all these exercises, just download my app, Oak. It has plenty of programs that incorporate all these things, and it doesn't matter if you're a girl, doesn't matter if you're a guy, it doesn't matter if you're new to working out or you've been working out for years. These tips are staples that can last for the entirety of your fitness journey. Not only will they last, but you'll get results that stay around. So, check in with yourself, see which mistakes you're making in that grouping of mistakes, and adjust, fix, and start really challenging yourself head on with the right exercise selection for the goal of growing some big, juicy glutes, okay? Now, last thing I want to go over, today I promised we're going to do a potato recipe breakdown. So let me get my workout in, and when I'm done here, I got to do a little cardio, but when I'm done, we'll go inside and I'll show you guys how I make my curry potatoes. Go over my current favorite potato recipe. Now, I am using a potato that is called a honey gold potato. You do not have to use the same one. But the reason why I choose that one is because the fiber is really high. So it kind of naturally drops a little bit of the way my body is breaking down the carbs and makes it a little bit more, let's just say, bodybuilder friendly. So I really do enjoy these potatoes because of their high fiber content. Now, essentially what we're going to be doing is we actually pre-cook the potatoes before I air fry them. And it sounds like a lot of work, but remember, you're not having to stand around the whole time. You can do things in between the process. So first, here is my, like to use Tupperware, but you can use whatever you want for it. Here's my bowl of potatoes. They're already chopped up. I'd say about quartered. They're small potatoes. You can see that's probably about half of one, so they're quartered. And just thrown into a bowl. Cut them in any shape you'd like, you'll be fine. But this is what you do next. Paper towel, folded twice. It's kind of a shitty paper towel. I didn't buy nice ones. But yeah, paper towel, push it down and crunch it over the top. Pretty self-explanatory there, right? Perfect. Now I'm going to spritz it with water. Not a ton, just enough. Spritz it with water so that the top has that moist look to it. And now I'm gonna throw it in the microwave for about 8 minutes, okay? After your 8 minutes, you're just gonna toss the potatoes without the cover on it and do them for like another 8 minutes. That is perfect. You can always check on them if your microwave is more powerful than mine. You just wanna make sure your potatoes get microwaved until all of them are soft. Use a fork, you can poke them, you'll be able to tell. But essentially in my microwave, I don't know if it's weak or it's just turned down to lower wattage, but 8 minutes, toss it, 8 minutes again, and then I'll show you what to do after that. Sound good? I'm gonna do this. While it's in there, I'm gonna go take my shower. So here we are, done with my shower. Potatoes are soft, they're ready to season. So this is the important part, that you don't overdo it. I know white people, we get a lot of flack for not seasoning our food enough. I'm not that guy. So I promise, I do care that it gets seasoned enough. We just gotta make sure that we don't overkill it with some of these spices, because some of these spices are pungent. They're very strong, so you have to be light. Garlic salt, pretty liberal with it. You can just sort of get a good coverage with that. Next up, we have curry powder. Obviously, one of the most important parts of the curry taste is gonna be curry powder. Now, the curry powder doesn't have to be too conservative. You can get a nice little thin coating over all your potatoes. You just essentially want, it looks like I'm putting on a lot, I'm not putting on a ton, but you essentially want a nice little bit of a sprinkle on every single potato. So if I were to guess, I'd say we're looking at, well, I'm not gonna even guess the amount, I'll just show you. We are gonna toss this. I'm not cutting this up or anything. I want you guys to actually see what it turns out like. So I'm not gonna crop or cut the video. We wanna make sure you get every little piece of it. Now, the next one's turmeric. Now with the turmeric, the important thing is that you do not overdo it. This is the one you do not wanna overkill. Very light. I'm talking like, if I were to measure it, I'd say like, if you were gonna do this with your fingers with like a full pinch, a decent sized pinch is all you need. I eyeball it, but it's much lighter than the curry. You just want a little bit on there. It complements the curry really well. Luckily, it doesn't come out very fast. But too much turmeric will really ruin the taste. It really will. So be careful with that. And then paprika, I'd say just a little bit more than you put on the turmeric. We want a little bit of color, a little bit of spice for the potatoes, and a little kick. And then I'll tell you what to do next. Don't go anywhere, I'll be right back. What you need next is you're going to need a spray. It's over here. I'm not going to advertise any brands, but essentially what we're looking at is an organic olive oil spray. You can use a canola oil too. I prefer the olive oil. You're going to spray it just enough to coat. That's it. We're not really adding calories, that way you don't really need to track it. Now we're going to toss the potatoes. Sounds like so many steps, but it's just because I'm explaining it. Remember, garlic salt, curry powder, a little bit more liberal with the curry powder, the turmeric, paprika, spray it with some light olive oil, toss it. That's literally all we're doing here. Now you want the potatoes to really be mixed up so you don't get any clumps of seasoning on anything. You're gonna toss them around. They should be moist. Obviously we microwaved them with some moisture so we know they're moist. Now I'm going to toss them in my air fryer basket. I'll do it over the sink because I'm a clean human. Scatter them. You want to make sure they all have their own place to live there. Toss them into the air fryer. Everybody's air fryer is different, so I'm not going to give you a time. It literally tells you on your air fryer how long to cook your potatoes for. Keep an eye on them. You just want them crispy on the outside. Remember, they are already cooked. I am exhausted, but what I am going to do for you guys is show you the finished product before we call it an end to the video, okay? So I'm going to press start. For my air fryer, it's about 15 minutes. When it's done, I will show you guys the finished product. All right, guys, potatoes are done. I am exhausted. I got other stuff to be doing right now, but I figured I'd at least show you the finished product. That is curried potatoes, air fried really. I think curried is more of a type of way to cook them, but yeah, curry seasoned air fried potatoes. Now, don't forget, the whole reason why I came up with this recipe is because it will taste so good with the sugar-free ketchup that I like my potatoes in. So give it a shot, try it, tag me if you do. I think you'll find it's a nice little hack to help you enjoy your potatoes, enjoy your carbohydrates at night more than ever. So tag me if you do it, pictures, videos, Instagram, whatever. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel. I will be consistently pushing out educational and helpful content throughout the year, and I want you to be a part of it. So without further ado, I'm gonna go to bed. I am gonna call it a night after I eat dinner here. Big day again tomorrow. Stay tuned. Check the description for any extras. All right, guys?